Hello there. I hope all you are feeling good and you are ready to have an interesting mathematics session. In this session, we are going to solve some cubic equations by factoring. I'm going to give some examples to explain how can we solve cubic equations by factoring. Example, solve. As first example, I'm going to write example number 1, x cubed minus 7x squared plus 12x equals 0. As you see, guys, this is a cubic equations in which cubic term, quadratic term, and linear terms are available, but the constant term is not available. Whenever in a cubic equation the constant term is not available and the other terms from the cubic to the linear, all of them are available. First of all, that is better to take factor out of x. If we take factor out of x in this equation, we will have x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Then, till now we understood in a cubic equation in which the cubic term, this one, the linear term, the cubic term, the quadratic term, and linear terms are available, but the constant is not available. The first step is taking factor out of x. And then we should try to factor inside of this parentheses. But we shouldn't forget to write x. X parentheses, open to parentheses, equals to 0. Instead of inside of each of these parentheses, we can put an x, a x here, an x, another x here. This number stands for sum, and this one stands for product. The numbers they can satisfy in these conditions are -3 and -4. And now you can see we have multiplication of three factors, which has become equal to 0. From here, we can have, using zero product property, the first factor equals 0, or the second factor is equal to 0, and at the end, or the third factor equals to 0. The first one is the solution. Solving the second one, we can reach to x equals to 3, and solving the third one will result in x equals to 4. And these are the solutions of this example, which is solved using factoring method. As second example, I'm going to write this example. 2x cubed minus 7x squared plus 5x equals 0. And in this cubic equation, as you see, the cubic term, quadratic term, and linear terms are available, but the constant is not available. As I explained in the previous one, at first step, we should factor out of x. After factoring out of x, we can have inside the parentheses 2x squared minus 7x plus 5 equals 0. Inside of the parentheses is factorable more, but if you pay attention, the leading coefficient of this quadratic inside the parentheses is not 1. That is better to multiply all terms of that quadratic, all terms of this quadratic by 2. But don't forget to put x here. If you multiply inside of this parentheses, all terms of this parentheses by 2, we can have parentheses 2x whole to the power of 2 minus 7 times 2x plus 10 equals 0. And in the next step, after writing the x, this x, you can open two parentheses and put the result equal to 0. Inside each of these parentheses, you can put a square root of this quadratic term. Square root of that is 2x, a 2x here, and another 2x here. This number stands for product, and this number stands for sum. We are looking for two numbers. Their product is positive 10 and their sum is negative 3. The two numbers which will satisfy these conditions are negative 2 and negative 5. And now we have reached to product of three factors which are equal to 0. Then using zero product property, we can claim at least one of these factors equals 0. That means x equals 0 or 2x minus 2 equals 0 or 2x minus 5 equals 0. This one is a solution because x is alone, and solving the second one will result in 2x equals to 2, and finally x equals 2 over 2, which will be 1. And solving the third one will result in 2x equals 5, and finally x will be 5 over 2. And these are the solutions of these cubic equations. As third equation, I'm going to write this equation, number 3. X cubed minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 0. This is a cubic equation in which all terms from the highest degree to the lowest degree are available. The cubic, quadratic, linear, and constant terms are available. In this type of equations, if we are going to solve the equation by factoring, we should use grouping method. We should group them 2 by 2. The first two should be put into the first group, and the second two should be put into the second group. Be sure to put plus sign between the two groups. In this form. Then go to the first group, find the GCF inside the first group. The GCF is x2, that is common. We can factor off top the common part, x2. If you factor off top the common part, from the first term remains x, and from the second term remains just negative 2. Inside the second group, 9 or negative 9 can be considered as the common part. If we factor off top 9, the parentheses, if we factor off top positive 9, the parentheses we can have will be negative x plus 2. And in here, you will say, okay, these two parentheses are not the same. They are opposite of each other. Then you should change your mind and factor off top negative 9 instead of 9. In this case, we can have x minus 2, x minus 2. And now, as you see, the parentheses are the same. Now, if you look precisely, you can see in this part and this part, the parentheses x minus 2 are in common. Then you can factor off top that common part. If you take out x minus 2 from this part, from this term, remains just x squared. And from this term, if you take out this parentheses, remains just negative 9 equals 0. And now you can continue factoring one more step. You can say x minus 2 is not factorable. we are going to write as it is, but x to minus 9 using the difference of two squares is factorable more. It can be written as square root of the first term minus square root of the second term times square root of the first term plus square root of the second term equals 0. How did I do this one? We have this identity, which is famous for the difference of two squares. This is equal to a minus b times a plus b. Let me write this one a little clearer. A minus b times a plus b equals to a squared minus b squared. This identity is famous for the difference of two squares. Okay, I used that identity. Then you can claim product of three factors has become equal to 0. Using zero product property, we can say at least one of these factors equals 0. That means x minus 2 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0. Solving the first one will result in x equals 2, and solving the second one will result in x equals 3, and solving the third one will result in x equals negative 3. These are the solutions of this equation. As the fourth example, I'm going to write this example number 4. 3x cubed plus x squared minus 12x minus 4 equals 0. As you see, this equation is a cubic equation in which all terms from the highest exponent to the lowest exponents are available. Then the only way we can use is using grouping method. I'm going to group them 2 by 2, 3x cubed plus x squared inside the first group, plus the second group will be negative 2x minus 4. Now, if you look at the first group, you can see x squared is in common. I'm going to factor out of x squared. If you factor out of x squared, you will have 3x plus 1 inside the parentheses. And in the second group, you can factor out of 4 or negative 4. But negative 4 is better because if you factor out of negative 4, this parentheses will be repeated here. And you can have 3x plus 1 equals 0. And as you see, in this term and this term, the parentheses 3x plus 1 is in common. You can take out that common part. You can factor out of that common part. If you take out this common part from the first term, you will have x squared. And from the second term, which is this much, from here, just remains negative 4. And the result equals 0. But factoring does not finish yet. And you can say this parentheses can be factored more. Then 3x plus 1 should be written. And the factored form of this binomial using the difference of two squares will be square root of the first term minus square root of the second term times square root of the first term plus square root of the second term, which is equal to 0. And now you can see product of three factors has become equal to 0. Then zero product property says at least one of these factors should be equal to 0. Then 3x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. Solving the first one will result in 3x equals negative 1. I move this one to the right side. And at the end, x will be negative 1 over 3, the first solution. And solving the second equation will result in x equals to 2, the second solution. And solving the third one will result in x equals negative 2, the third solution.